Hi there, and welcome back to Life with Casey. I'm really excited today to start off my first episode of my international travel series. Just as a little bit of a summary, I was inspired to do this series by a couple of my friends that are planning a trip abroad and were a little bit overwhelmed about it. They were thinking about contacting a travel agency so that they wouldn't have to deal with coordinating all of the overwhelming, stressful details of planning an international trip. And I told them, no, you can absolutely plan this trip yourself. And so I was inspired to create this series, breaking it down by each of the individual parts and steps that someone would take to plan a trip abroad, giving you a little bit of guidance, sharing some of my knowledge from my experiences, and I'm really excited. I really hope this helps. I think that this will be a good resource for a lot of people that are going abroad for their first time, or maybe it's been a while, maybe they've only ever been abroad with a university or a study abroad program and are feeling a little lost. I think this is going to be a good series to help out a lot of people. So this first episode of my international travel series is how to decide where to go. As I said in my intro video, this may seem kind of silly. A lot of people, when they think about traveling abroad, they have a certain place in mind, somewhere they've always wanted to go, or maybe they have some event that they've always wanted to go to, and so when they're planning their trip, they know exactly where they're going to go. They have for a long time, and so this may not be relevant to everyone. But I know there are some people out there that just want to get away, want to see something new, try something new, and they're not really quite sure where exactly to go. This video is going to list some factors on how to narrow it down, how you can possibly determine where to go. So the first factor that I'm going to list to help you narrow down where you might go abroad is to think about the type of trip that you want to take. So a couple of the options that I have here is a beach or relaxation trip. Maybe you would want to go to the Dominican Republic, which is the classical Caribbean beach trip. Or maybe you want to go somewhere a little more exotic, like Thailand. Or maybe you want to go to that paradise you see on your calendar at work, somewhere like Bora Bora, where they have those huts, you know, on the clear blue water in a little circle. You know what I'm talking about. So maybe you're just thinking you've had a lot of stress and you want to go on a beach vacation. Maybe you're the type of person that loves history and culture, and so you're thinking you might want to do a trip to Western Europe and check out some of the archaeological sites and check out ancient Rome and Greece. Or maybe you want to go on a World War I, World War II trip, or maybe you're really into art history and you want to check out all of the art museums and the buildings and everything. Maybe you want to go to Asia if you're into history and culture and see Mesopotamia, or see Buddhism or Hinduism and the influences that they've had on culture and on architecture and on society. Maybe you want to go to Central America if you're into the Mayan ruins, or you want to go to some of the jungles, the rainforests, the volcanoes. You could go to Central America. Another type of trip that you might want to do is an adventure trip. So I picture this as climbing or biking or hiking or even diving. And so some places where you could think about going for an adventure type of trip is New Zealand, or maybe to Africa, or climb Mount Everest, or go to Machu Picchu. Those are just some of the things that came to my head in thinking about an adventure type of trip. Another trip you could go on is just to see famous sites or tourist spots. So you could go to the Eiffel Tower in Paris. You could go to the Great Wall of China. You could see the Jesus statue in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil. You could go and see the pyramids in Egypt. So if you think about all of the touristic and the famous sites all over the world, maybe that's a trip that you'd like to do. Another type of trip that you could go on is one for events or festivals. So one that's near and dear to my own heart is the FIFA World Cup, or maybe you'd like to go to see the Olympics, the Summer or Winter Olympics somewhere, or some other types of sports festivals or sports events around the world. You could look into other types of festivals that are held around the world. I know in Asia, such as China, Vietnam, and Thailand, they have really beautiful lantern festivals where everyone goes out on the little boats on the water and they send up their flaming lanterns. That's something that's on my list that I'd love to go to. Or else maybe you'd want to go for a holiday or a religious celebration or a cultural ceremony. Some examples of this is Dia de los Muertos in Mexico. Maybe you want to go to Oktoberfest in Germany. You could go to Chinese New Year, or you could do the Scandinavian Midsummer in some of the Scandinavian countries. So those are examples that I have of an event or a festival type of trip. And last, the last type of trip that I came up with is to see some sort of natural phenomena. So a really famous example of this is the Northern Lights in the northernmost part of the world. Maybe you could schedule to go and see a volcano eruption. Maybe you want to go and see pink sand beaches somewhere hidden around the world. The last example that I came up with for a natural phenomena trip that you might want to go on is to Japan, or this isn't abroad, but Washington, D.C. to see the flowering trees. So these are the types of trips that I've come up with. I have 6 of them here. If you're not sure where you want to go, you're feeling like you just want to get away but you don't know where, maybe start by narrowing it down to the type of trip that you want to go to, or go on, excuse me, and then you can figure out where you'd like to go specifically, which country, which city, after you've narrowed down the types of the trip. So again, to summarize, the types of trips that I came up with are a beach or relaxation, a historical or cultural, an adventure trip, going to famous sites or tourist points, going to an event or a festival abroad, and then going to see a natural phenomenon. Okay, so the second factor that we're going to talk about in helping to narrow down the trip that you're going to decide to go on is the time of year. So this can be really critical depending on what type of trip that you want to go to for obvious reasons. So if you've decided that you want to go abroad for some specific event or festival or to see some natural phenomena, these might only be happening for a few days or weeks out of the year or years. You know, the Olympics, if you want to go to the Summer Olympics, it only happens once every 4 years. The flowering trees in Japan may only happen for 2 or 3 weeks during a certain season. So you really want to ask yourself, what is your time frame? How quickly do you want to go on this trip? And do these events or festivals, does it fall in your time frame? Are you going to be able to get time off of work then? Is it going to fit in your budget? Those are the types of questions that you might want to ask. Another thing to keep in mind is the seasons. This also is pretty obvious. If you're going on a beach trip, you want to go when it's warm, you want to go in the summer. And so, you know, you'd have to kind of plan your trip around the seasons, and keep in mind also that in the southern hemisphere the seasons are flipped. So if you want to go to a beach vacation in Brazil, you'd probably go November, December, January, February when it's the warmer season, instead of June, July, August when it's colder and rainy. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Another thing about the time of year to keep in mind is that in the northern part of the globe, the Scandinavian countries, northern Russia, northern Canada, the farther north you go up during the summer, it's pretty much all light, all sun, 24 hours a day, no darkness. And on the flip side, when it's winter there, it's pretty much all darkness, 24 hours a day. So if you're planning on going sightseeing and it's 24 hours of night, that's not going to work so well. If you want to go to see the Northern Lights and you go when it's 24 hours a day of sun and light, that's not going to work out so well. So that's another thing to keep in mind. Another thing to consider when you're planning what time of year you want to go, if you're going to go on some adventure trip, think about, is there a rainy season? Is there a season when the national park or wherever you're going to go to, is it closed during the bad part of the year? So definitely do some research before you're going to go on your trip, or before you're narrowing it down. What's the climate like? What are the seasons like? What is the daylight versus darkness ratio in that part of the world at the time that you're planning on going? The last thing to consider when you're thinking about the time of year is some trips you can't help it. You know, when I went to the FIFA World Cup, this couldn't really be avoided, but when you think about the high tourist season, that might not be ideal. If you're wanting to go on a relaxing beach vacation and you go and there's 2 million other people on the beach, it might not be super relaxing. The other thing to consider when you're thinking about going on a trip during the high tourist season is that prices could be a lot more expensive. And just the number of people that are going to be around. You might not even get that much time if you're going to see some sort of site, or if you're going to an event. The tickets could sell out really quickly. There might be 1 million people around when you're trying to get that picture with that famous site. And so those are things to keep in mind also. You definitely don't want to go on a beach vacation when it's cold, but maybe don't go during the most tourist month because you won't get your relaxation. I definitely recommend doing some research when you're narrowing it down on the seasons, the darkness versus the light, when is the high tourist season, what are the prices. All of those things can help to determine where you want to go and when you want to go. So the next thing that I'm going to talk about in how to narrow it down and how to determine where to go when you're going on an international trip are some convenience factors. If you have 3 choices, you decided you want to go on a beach vacation and you have 3 choices, how do you narrow it down between those 3 countries? Well, maybe these convenience factors can help to make it a little bit easier for you. So the first convenience factor that I'm going to talk about is the visa or the entry requirements. If you could go to Mexico with just your passport, or you could go to Bora Bora, I don't know, I've never been to Bora Bora, but let's say that they require a visa and it takes 8 months to process, and you have to fly to the consulate and you have to get an invitation letter. You know, maybe Mexico is the better choice. So that's definitely something that you'd want to research in advance and maybe make your decision on a country that doesn't have as many requirements, or that might be a little bit cheaper or easier for you to go. The next thing that I would definitely recommend looking into before you pick a site or a country is the number of flights and the number of layovers to get there. Again, I'll use the beach vacation as an example. If you could go to Cancun, I live in Denver, so there are direct flights. It's about 3.5 hours, and it's about $200 to get from Denver to Cancun. That's super quick. I can leave here at 10 in the morning and get there by lunchtime. Versus going to Thailand, let's say, which is a dream of mine and I always have wanted to go. But you may need to get 2-3 planes with a bunch of different layovers. You run the risk of missing a connecting flight and getting stranded in your layover city, or complications with baggage. The more flights and the more layovers almost always means more complications, more money on the ticket to get there, and a longer travel time to get there. So once you've narrowed down the type of trip that you want to go on, and you're thinking through the different options, definitely keep number of flights, flight time, and layovers in mind. And along with that, you definitely want to think about the accessibility of the place that you're going. Again, with the beach example, Mexico for us in Denver is just one flight. We just have to get to the airport, get on the flight, and then get transportation from the airport to the hotel. But if you're going to Bora Bora, or if you're going to some really remote island location, not only do you have to think of the number of flights to get there, but also when you land, you have to take a boat or a ferry to get to the island. You have to take a jet plane after that to get to the island. How accessible is it, and how much longer and more expensive is it going to be just to get to that remote location? The next factor is prices and currency exchange. So if you have 2 similar choices, you've decided you want to go to Europe on a historical and cultural trip, and you have 2 choices of countries that you've narrowed it down to, look into the flights and the hotels in those countries and see if there's a super big difference in the prices in the flights or the hotels. That can definitely help narrow it down. But also think about currency exchange. So if you want to go to a really beautiful city and you're thinking about going to London, or you're thinking about going to Buenos Aires, let's say, Compared to the US dollar, the British pound is much stronger, and so it's going to be more expensive for you to go to the United Kingdom than it is for you to go to Argentina with the peso. So those are also some factors to consider when making your choice. The next factor that I have that is sort of a convenience factor that could help make your decision is, what is the language spoken in the country that you're going to? If you're looking for some mountain adventure and your choices are New Zealand or going to the Swiss Alps, if you don't know French or German, maybe you would consider New Zealand because you have the English in common in that country. And so it'll be a lot more comfortable, it'll be a lot more natural to go somewhere where you know the language than to struggle in a country that you don't know how to communicate with people. And the last factor that I have to consider when narrowing down your choices is security and the reputation of the country. So I love Latin America. It is my favorite region of the whole entire world, but some Latin American countries are pretty dangerous. And so if you don't have that deep burning passion for Latin America like I do, maybe it's not the best idea to go and risk, your safety and some security concerns if you're not willing to take that on. So definitely look in advance, research how dangerous or safe is that country. What is the reputation? Does it have a reputation of being family friendly? Is it a warm and welcoming culture, or is it a more cold and standoffish culture? Those might be things that you take into consideration when narrowing down which country to go to abroad also. So to end this video, I am going to ask you a question that will hopefully be able to really narrow it down when you're thinking about making your trip. And that question is, what excites you? When I've been talking about all the different types of trips that you could go on and all the different factors and all the different times of the year, was there something that I talked about that excited you? Was there something in your head that you think, that's definitely it, that's something I've always wanted to do? What's on your bucket list? I mean, everybody, even if they don't have an official bucket list written down, has thought, oh, one day I'd love to do this, or I've always wanted to go there, or saw a movie and I think it would be really cool to go there. That's something that I've been thinking about for a little while. Ask yourself those questions, and that can be how you make your decision. Ultimately, if there's something that gets you excited, even if it has a reputation of being a little bit more risky, or even if they don't speak the same language, if it excites you, that's a great trip. You're gonna have a great time. It's gonna be a super memorable time for you. And so I would recommend just doing some self-reflecting. Think about what your passions are. Are you passionate about history or sports or adventure or food or languages or culture or art? Just think about deep down, what are your passions and where can you go to express those passions and explore them with other people that share that same passion. So this has been the part 1 of my international travel series. Like I said, this probably doesn't apply to the majority of people booking an international trip because I think a lot of people already know where they want to go. But I hope that this did help. If there's people out there that maybe they already knew they wanted to go on a beach vacation, but they just felt there were so many beautiful beaches around the world, how are they ever going to decide on one? How do they know what's best for them? Hopefully this video has been able to help you. Even if it hasn't helped a ton of people, I encourage you to come back for my next video. I've already got it all planned out and I'm getting ready to record and post. It's going to be all about booking flights and other methods of transportation. So I'm really looking forward to that video. I think the video on booking flights will be really applicable and could save people a lot of headaches, a lot of money, a lot of hassle, a lot of travel time. So make sure to come back for that video. It's going to be really great. Also, if you want to leave a like or a comment, I'd love to hear your feedback. Also, at the bottom of the screen is my Instagram, Life with Casey. You can go and check that out. I've been posting some pictures of my life and my travels and what's going on. And I am about 95% done with my blog, Life with Casey, that I've been talking about in my last few videos. I'm really excited for this. I think there's going to be a lot of good opportunities to explore some of the topics that I've talked about in these videos, but much more. Not even only travel or languages or culture. I'm looking to get into some career development and professional development and self-development and health and wellness and fitness and all the different topics that I'm excited about, all the different things that I like to pursue and that I'm passionate about in my life. It'll just kind of be a summary of Life with Casey. So I will go ahead and share that information as soon as I post it. You guys will be the first to know. And thanks again. Thanks for watching my videos. Thanks for subscribing to my channel, and we will see you soon.